Welcome back to SnowRunner, guys, and in this video, we are going to be taking a look at the R&R Warrior, which is now officially on consoles. Yes, the R&R Warrior that you guys have been seeing PC gameplay of for a little while now has officially made its way to all systems. That includes all Xbox and PlayStation systems. Now, full disclosure, this footage was all recorded on an Xbox Series X, and we're going to be using it on two different maps. The first map is going to be the Top Truck Challenge map, and the second map is going to be the Super Truck Stadium map. And with that being said, hope you all enjoy the rest of the video. Let's get right into it. Now, I have to say, the fact that this vehicle dropped on consoles so quickly has been a very big surprise, not only to me, but to a lot of people in the rest of the modding community. I know that Rexy himself was very surprised to see it drop this quickly. Now, going through the list of tires, I can already tell you that I think the list of tires may cause a little bit of lag on some older consoles, but hopefully that doesn't mess with your console all that much. Now, there are some new parts on here that were installed in a recent update that this vehicle did not have before. For example, this rear tire carrier was actually really cool. That was an add-on that I had not really messed with before, but the second I saw it, I was like, oh my god, I have to have it. Now, as I went through some of the other customization options, I went back and forth between the sad eyes and the angry eyes, and I usually either go with the angry eyes or, you know, none at all. Now, some people in the Jeep community think that the whole eyes thing is cool. Some people think it's just, you know, fun to mess with, and other people are like, oh my god, that's the cringiest thing ever. Do not even put that on your Jeep. So, again, sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. It just depends on what kind of mood I'm in, but I used that new canopy as well as the custom bed rack, and the rack in the back actually is really practical because you can mount traction boards on one side and a high lift jack on the other side, and then also have your spares in the middle, and you can actually put together a really realistic feeling overland setup. And I think at the end of the day, even though you can go with that really flexible low center of gravity suspension, the overall tone of this vehicle I think has always been a really heavily built overlander, and I think that's a good thing, you know, because you can also use that animated rooftop tent that goes up and down if you want, and you really can role play out a bunch of different overlanding scenarios, especially if you get a group of guys together, you know, to go out onto the trails, maybe for example on the TNB Trails map, which if you did not know is actually now back on consoles as well, so that's a big deal. Now, going through the wheels, we actually now have these AEV wheels in addition to Risky's decoy wheels as well as the method wheels that it had prior, so that's actually a really nice addition. I love the AEV wheels. They definitely have a OEM plus feel to them, and you definitely see them being installed on a lot of either Wranglers or Gladiators or, for example, Ram 2500 Power Wagons you see with a lot of the AEV wheels. And the cool thing about AEV wheels is that if you look them up in real life, the company AEV itself, not only do they make wheels, but they make full vehicle conversions, and they can basically take a fully stock Ram 2500 Power Wagon or a Jeep Gladiator and take it into their shop, and by the time it leaves the shop, it's basically a fully prepped wilderness exploration vehicle that can basically come with up to 40-inch tires that's ready to go anywhere. Now, you can also have this adventure 4x4 sticker on your hood if you want. I opted not to go with that option, but I did opt for one of the really cool camo colors, and the camo colors I definitely recommend doing if you're at all interested in some cool kind of quirky color schemes. You know, if you do want to go with a solid color, it does have a full spectrum of solid colors available to you. However, once again, if you want to go with something a little bit more on the creative side, the camo colors definitely are there for you. And one of the coolest things about it is that that little roof covering also changes color depending on what shade of camo you choose. Now, I decided to start out here at the Top Truck Challenge map because I wanted to put it through a variety of obstacles right off the bat and then take it to the Super Truck Stadium map a little bit later, because there's a couple of things that I wanted to attempt out there that you'll see later on in the video, like, for example, the obstacle course as well as the first jump on the racetrack. We definitely didn't do the full racetrack, but I just wanted to see what would happen if we threw this thing at the jump, and I think you guys will definitely find our jump attempt quite hilarious. Now, as we moved through this initial rock crawling section, one of the biggest things that you'll notice, or at least one of the biggest things that I always notice whenever I drive this vehicle, is how incredibly balanced it is and how incredibly stable and secure it is, even at very, very high angles, right? Even at very high lean angles, the confidence level remains very, very high. So even though I stated previously that it is a very, very good overlanding and expedition vehicle, it's definitely not one where I would shy away from a crawler trail either. Now, you do have to be aware of how long the wheelbase is, for sure. You're definitely not going to be able to kind of sneak your way through obstacles quite the way you can in, say, for example, Red's Bronco, because it's obviously much shorter. But with a long wheelbase like this, if you get used to driving it, and if you get used to its strengths and weaknesses, you definitely can use those strengths and weaknesses to your advantage, and it really does help if you take the time to practice how it actually responds to different lines and different motions. Now, I will say, though, when we went through this obstacle, the front axle ended up glitching under one of these logs, and I have a feeling that it's a combination of probably an issue with the bumper and maybe an issue with this particular suspension option that I chose, so I decided to recover, and I'm sure that if we used either a different suspension option or a different tire, that we could very well be fine on that obstacle, or maybe, you know, really focused on doing it diagonally, although this is the first vehicle where I've ever had that issue, so it may be something very specific to this exact tire size or maybe the exact scale of the vehicle in relation to the spacing of those logs, but that'll be something that we'll have to figure out in terms of further testing. Now, I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below on how this has been performing on your consoles. Now, let me know, of course, what system you're on, as well as, you know, what generation of that system you're on, and how many mods you've been using, you know, if this is the only mod you've been able to have enabled, or if you have this plus like 2 or 3 other mods on. I think on the Series X right now, I have this plus something like 8 or 9 other mods, and it runs just fine. Now, granted, that is a brand new console, but it really does amaze me that still with having the memory limit and the current memory restrictions, I'm able to run that many mods, and it does just once again go to show that it's not 100% based on the same limit across the board. It's more dynamically based on what each console can sort of handle, or at least a percentage thereof. Now, let's go ahead and finish off that test with some donuts, and then magically beam ourselves over to the Super Truck Stadium. Now, as you can see, we've changed up the setup on it. We're now running a roll cage. We're now running like a pure red paint job, no camo on this particular setup. And oh my god, the torque. The torque is absolutely insane. If you leave it in automatic mode and you just kick the clutch on the left bumper, it throws itself forward. And if you have the wheel turned at all, it's total drift mode. Now, the tires we have on it now are actually Puppy Master's Bug tires, and they actually work really, really well. I really enjoy using them on this rig, and not only do I think they work really well, but I think that looks-wise, you know, aesthetically, they actually complement the look of the rig really well. Now, I decided to try to go for high, or at least go for the jumping high, and it actually slowed way down when I did that, so I was like, I'm gonna back up and try it again. But as you'll see momentarily, that approach didn't necessarily work as well as I wanted it to. Now, granted, we have the top engine in this thing right now, so it's not like it's lacking for power, but the gear ratios of the transmission don't really allow it to make that jump. Now, would it be cool to see a race gearbox on this thing in the future? Sure. But at the same time, is it something that I think it needs? No, I definitely don't think it's something it absolutely needs. I think it would just be something that's like a cool little side note if you ever wanted to play around with it on the racetrack. But at the end of the day, most people are going to use this for virtual overlanding trips or rock crawling trips, or just hanging out with their friends, you know, doing some realistic wheeling, or maybe even doing some light towing and some campaign gameplay, because of course this supports the in-game scout trailers as well as the R&R gooseneck trailers when you have the gooseneck hitch installed. So that's another thing to be aware of. So if you do want to haul vehicles with this, you can, and if you want to haul cargo with it, you can also do that as well. Although I definitely would not recommend using this suspension for that type of gameplay because it is way too soft, and that's why they of course include the towing suspension. Now, as you'll be able to see, this particular suspension, once again, the ultra soft low center of gravity, does have a couple of hiccups on this course as well, and if I was going to run this course again and try to set a time, I would most likely go for the lift kit, which is a little bit higher but also a little bit stiffer and doesn't flex as much, but still has just enough flex and just enough give to, at least in my opinion, be very, very usable on a course like this. Now, do I think this mod is worth taking up that hard drive space on your console? Absolutely. 100%. I think this is one of the coolest console mods to drop in a long time. Of course, I also wish that more people were able to use the R&R 3500, but leading up to the patch, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that won't be able to use the R&R 3500 on the older consoles, especially until that RAM increase patch comes out, because some of the older consoles just genuinely cannot handle that high poly of a model when it's introduced into this particular game environment. And I hope that that continues to help clear up some of the issues, and I completely understand if you guys are frustrated. I completely understand the frustration behind that, and honestly, like, I completely understand the frustration of seeing that truck and being like, I want to freaking drive it, but the game won't let me drive it. And dude, that I completely 100% understand how that can be an extremely frustrating scenario. But once again, rest assured, the developers are working hard to push that patch out, and we all need to be patient because, you know, even after the developers finish the patch, we need to wait on the consoles themselves, Xbox and PlayStation, to then approve the patch and have the patch pass their own testing procedures. So that's definitely something that we need to wait for, but hopefully is on the horizon. Now, once again, with that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this test video, and I hope you guys get the opportunity to drive this thing because it is a wonderful, wonderful mod, and I'm so incredibly happy it made its way to consoles. Let me know what your experiences have been in the comment section down below, and if you're new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on, and I'll see you guys next time.